Don't worry. I see that we have a quorum. There's 5 of us here. And I'd like to have a motion to adopt the February 6th and February 20th minutes. Would anybody like to do so?
Yes, I move that we adopt the February and March minutes as produced.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next, we need to adopt the agenda. Would you like to make a motion to adopt the agenda? Tonight's agenda.
move it.
Go
Go ahead.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I will second that.
All in favor?
I
Okay, now it's time to hear from our city council liaison. Councilman Stephen.
Hi, my name is Michael Brigden. I'm city councilor. I was appointed liaison to the planning commission in January, and so it's still a fairly new position, and I don't think we've actually figured out how this is going to work well yet. And I'm okay with that, but most people know what's going on in council. We're doing a lot of goal setting, and budget season's coming up. We're talking about things that we're doing this year. We're talking about things we're going to do next year. A lot of fire mitigation talk, a lot of transportation projects happening around town. Roundabout art is high on the list right now. And so, we're just doing the things that we normally do, and we appreciate all the work that you guys do here at the Planning Commission to advance some of these decisions to us in recommending what's good and what's not good. So what you guys do is very, very important, and we do appreciate it. And lots of meetings. We didn't have a second meeting in March because we took spring break off because 2 of us have kids. So we had our first meeting back last week, and it was pretty chock full of stuff, and we were here until 9:45 p.m. Latest meeting that I can remember on the 7 years I've been on council now. Lots of good stuff though. Just everybody's busy, and we appreciate what you do. You guys have any questions or any items you want to ask about, or I'm available to it.
When's the construction on Barclay supposed to be finished in mid-May or?
Yeah, they're being overly optimistic and saying mid-May. I really think it's probably going to be run into June a little bit, but hopefully the road's open and it doesn't slow anybody down when the season opens for shows, and rodeo is kind of the first one. And I think that it'll probably be 90% complete, and hopefully all the stuff, the road itself is the most important part, and they get that back open pretty quick. Paul's the guy to ask, though. That would be Director Bertagnan of Public Works.
The weather's cooperating and they're working hard.
So far, so good. It does help. You can see the East Portal project, which is now called Gateway Park, Sisters Gateway Park. We just adopted that name, I think, recently. Maybe not. Maybe we're doing it next week. But yeah, it's going over there. It's looking pretty good over there.
paving it today.
Yeah.
When's the opening scheduled for that?
I couldn't tell you. To be honest with you.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul's a guy. Yeah, we'll know more. So next week. It's kind of weird when your guys' meeting is the week before or the week after. So I've already forgotten what happened at the last meeting, and I have no idea what's going to happen at the next meeting. So I'm really of no good use to you. So I'm just being honest.
Say that.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Well, have a great meeting. I'm going to stay during visitor communication, and then when you guys get into the hearing, I will leave after that. I want to hear what the visitors say.
Okay. This is the time provided for individuals wishing to address the planning commission regarding issues not already on the agenda. Anyone? You'd like to come on up to the podium and
Just a quick question.
sure.
If an option to freeze, like an option C, freeze the UGB and freeze building, is that outside of
That's not on the agenda, so yeah, if you'd like to come up and make a comment.
What?
The podium over there. State your name and address.
Bill Carmichael, and I live at 1610 West Williamson Avenue, Sisters, Oregon. I want to discuss the possibility of pausing the UGB growth boundary and freezing the approval of new developments until we can discuss what it means to have affordable housing in this community. In my article in Nugget this week, I said just to do the same as we're doing. It's kind of like the cartoon of Charlie Brown kicking the football. Allow me to give an example. The current median income in Sisters, according to AIE research, is $93,115. As we know, median income refers to the income amount that falls exactly in the middle of a given population. If a developer says to you that they will provide 30% affordable housing based on the median income, it would mean that the person earning $93,000 based on the 30% rule for housing expenses and considering conventional mortgage terms, a rough estimate that is the income level for a home they could afford would be approximately $400,000 with a 10% down payment that they could spend. However, this median income has nothing to do with either teachers in our community or the service providers. Again, according to AI research, we have 215 teachers in our sister school system. They average an annual salary of $46,993. Their median annual wage is $50,843, including the superintendent who makes $154,730 based on the latest reports. So if we say we want affordable housing for teachers based on that 30% rule and based on the median income, they might be able to afford a monthly payment, including taxes and insurance, of $1,270 per month in rent, or a home costing $200,000 with a 10% down payment. There is nothing in Sisters right now that even closely meets that criteria. If we want affordable housing for the service industry, which is grocery clerks, waiters, cooks, entry-level construction, etc., based on the average salary income of $14 to $20 per hour for a 6-day, 48-hour work week, forget about buying a home on the 30% rule. They can afford an apartment of about $700 to $900 per month. There is not a single apartment in rent in Sisters right now that meets that criteria. A couple of weeks ago, apartments.com website reported 188 apartments currently for rent in Sisters. Zillow reported less than that, so there is some discrepancy as to how many there actually are. But they range in rent from a low of $1,350 per month for a studio apartment up to a high of $3,195 for a 3-bedroom apartment. There's not a single apartment that's for rent in the category that can be afforded by those people. And right around the corner from my house on Trinity Way, there is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, 880 square feet with no backyard and a 10-foot setback front yard that the city approved under the affordable housing concept, which is for resale for $489,900 and is listed as the least expensive home available to purchase in Sisters. And even a median income teacher salary cannot afford a home based on the 30% rule. Here's the elephant in the room. Somebody needs to start doing the math. Even in using the 93,000 median income, we are not building homes that are affordable for those in our infrastructure that need them. And it's far less achievable for our teachers and service industry workers. I doubt there's a single builder who's willing to sell a home they build new, especially with tariffs coming for lumber from Canada, etc., in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, making them actually affordable for those who need them. And all these vacant apartments, some sitting on the market for almost 300 days, because either the people who need them can't afford them, or the people who can afford them don't want to raise their families or in an apartment complex. It's time.
We're gonna be needing to
Okay, I'll cut it short. Okay. Doing the same thing we've been doing, where we expand the UGB housing. Or the UGB, which is a two-step thing. And then we say, okay, now it's rezoned so that a builder can present it, and they come and present you with affordable housing. We are doing exactly the same thing where we have always already done. And frankly, we need to, I believe, completely stop and figure out some creative way that we can actually create affordable housing for the infrastructure. Otherwise, we have people from California or other places moving up to buy the property, the prices go up. And we have then more pressure on our infrastructure of roads and schools and sewers and water. And we still haven't solved the problem of how we're going to create housing for our teachers and for the service industry. Thank you. Option C. Put a pause.
Any other visitor communication for an item that's not on the next agenda? Okay, thank you guys. Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, I'm leaving because this is a land use that I'm not allowed to hear, so I have to go.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Throw out a better idea, is that this? Wasn't short.
Okay. Now on to the public hearing. Public hearing, the project name is Public Facility Institutional Zone District Development Code Amendment, Exhibit C. File number PA-25-02. The applicant is the City of Sisters. And its request is a text amendment to the Sister Development Code to add permitted uses to the Public Facility Institutional Zone District and add a new definition. This is the time set. It's pretty repetitive, I guess. I have to read the same thing. This is the time set for a public hearing on city file number TA 2502, an application for text amendments to the Sister Development Code, adding new permitted uses to the Public Facility Institutional Zone District in the City of Sisters. Submitted by the City of Sisters. The meeting is now called to order. Public hearing will be conducted as follows. Staff will make a presentation and commissioners may ask questions to staff. Entry of additional correspondence received into the record. C, opening public hearing for testimony in the following order. Testimony in support of the proposal, testimony in opposition of the proposal, neutral testimony. The questions of staff, if any, by the Planning Commission. E, closed public testimony portion of the hearing, no further testimony. F, discussion and decision by the Planning Commission. Testimony will be accepted in person and remotely via Zoom. If you'd like to speak, please provide your testimony after your call. If you do not wish to provide testimony, please say no testimony after your call. Any questions should be directed to me as chair. When you testify, please state your name, address for the record, and please speak clearly and loudly to ensure testimony is heard, as this hearing is being recorded. Callers will be muted after their testimony concludes. At my discretion, I may limit testimony to 3 minutes per person. I would encourage those wishing to speak to keep testimony concise and relevant to the issue before us this evening. It is encouraged to simply agree with the point made by another person instead of remaking the point. For the deliberations, the applicable substantive criteria are listed in the staff report. These are the criteria the Planning Commission must use in making its decision. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards these criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulations that the person testifying believes apply to the decision. Testimony that is not directed towards applicable or potentially applicable approval criteria, even if a strong point is ultimately not relevant. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the planning commission and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the planning commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the planning commission to provide further opportunity to present additional relevant evidence or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. Disclosures. At this time, I'll ask if any commissioner has any conflict of interest. If so, please disclose the nature of the conflict and whether the member believes the conflict would preclude the member from objectively participating in these proceedings.
No conflicts, I will proceed.
I have no conflicts. I plan to participate.
I have no conflicts and I plan to participate.
I have no conflicts and I plan to participate.
And I have no conflicts and I plan to participate. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the ability of any commissioner to hear this matter? No. Staff, we now present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, commissioners. For the record, my name is Scott Woodford. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Sisters. And as mentioned, the proposal before you tonight is a text amendment to the Sisters Development Code, specifically to the public facilities and institutional district. I'll refer to it as the PFI district going forward. It's easier to say. But the purpose of the amendments is to add some permitted uses to the use table in 2.71, as well as add a new definition for one of the new uses proposed. I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna lead you through a short kind of presentation, give you a little bit of background on where this is coming from, and some details in terms of what's being proposed. So the little bit of background. So this is a city-initiated code amendment. Sometimes we have applicant-initiated ones, but this was not one that was came from a council goal. Like typically we have development code amendments that are implementing council goals. But this is one that was based on direction from the city council that came out of some public comment that they received at a meeting earlier in the year. And that comment was related to a business owner that was wanting to locate into a facility here in town, specifically one that's located in our PFI zone, the old elementary school. We had been in some contact with this person for a while about the proposed use, which was kind of a therapy use for targeted towards children, and kind of explaining that the public facility, the PFI zone, didn't really allow that use. However, they had an opportunity to locate into the old elementary school, and so we tried to make it fit. We looked at different ways we could maybe put it under the definition of community center, and ultimately just came to the point where it felt that it was too much of a stretch to do that. And what needed to be requested was to amend the code. And the way usually to initiate that is to start with the city council and see if they feel that this is a change that they would support eventually. And so that direction came from council down to staff to work towards creating a use that would accommodate this particular request. So as I mentioned, as you're aware, the old elementary school has been turned into a community center. And it occupies a good portion of the building facility out there. However, there is other space in the building that the school district is interested in leasing out for uses that fit community needs and are more or less aligned with the school goals and so we also have a child daycare kind of preschool use that Soul Blossom is running. So there's that use in addition to the community center currently going, and there's some additional space, and the school district is putting requests up for lease of that space. And so that's how this particular business came forward, and so the opportunity to lease that space. Again, that use is not currently allowed in the PFI zone district. So we got the direction from council and then held a workshop with them on February 26th to get some kind of further direction on what specific changes they'd like to see with the code to help accommodate that use. And then we held a similar workshop with the planning commission on March 5th, where you guys gave some good direction on what you'd like to see. And so between the two bodies, the council and the planning commission, staff took that direction and attempted to respond to that with proposed code amendments that are noted in Exhibit A, in your staff report. And so two new uses are being proposed. One is to add childcare as a land use. That was a request from council to add that. It's a demonstrated need in the community to have more space for childcare and hopefully those that may be located in the community center through the school district could get a better rate, help maybe make some of that childcare a little more affordable. So that's a use that the council wanted us to add. So that's being proposed to be added. And it's all shown on the use table. This 2.7.200 is the use table. And you'll see added in underlined in that table are the two uses that were added: the child care center, commercial child care center, which would be added as a permitted use. You'll notice in the table that we have different categories for what type of review it would be, or how we categorize that use. P stands for permitted, which basically means that use is not questioned. You can basically, if you're wanting to locate in a building and that use is permitted, you don't need further land use review. Generally, if it is a CU or an MCU, that stands for minor conditional use or conditional use. A minor conditional use is a type 2 review, which is it doesn't require minor conditional review; it's an administrative review. Minor conditional use. So it's a minor conditional use. Yeah. A conditional use is something that is more than a minor conditional use, and that does require, that's a type 3 that requires minor conditional review. That's for the things that have the greatest impacts. To a zone that need to be mitigated. If you recall, when the gas station States H came through, that was a conditional use that was reviewed by the Planning Commission. So what's being proposed for the child care center is that it be a permitted use. Has to meet, state licensing requirements. I think there's some other criteria that has to be, as long as it meets that, then it's generally held that use is okay to go forward without further review. And then a little farther back up, we added a new use called community health center, and that was designed to be able to accommodate the proposed therapy use in that building. And so when you add a new use, you need to add a definition to help everyone understand what it means and what's permitted for that. So also added a proposed definition in chapter 1.3 for community health center, which is a facility providing accessible healthcare services, including medical, dental, behavioral health, physical therapy, occupational therapy, nutrition, and or pharmacy services, but excluding direct treatment services, operated by a nonprofit organization or a governmental entity. The word accessible is in there. I thought I took that out when I proposed, when I put this into the staff report. What does accessible mean? I don't think it's necessarily important or pertinent in this situation. So I would actually recommend if you go forward with the recommendation for approval, I would potentially recommend removing the word accessible. So we got, once I drafted up a condition, I ran by our legal department to make sure there were no concerns. There was a couple of comments. One, they originally said community-based. We talked internally about that wasn't really necessary, but that would be community-based. What is community-based mean? I think it's okay not to have it in there. Also ran the definition by the proponent of the intended use to make sure that that definition adequately accommodated what they propose, what their business really is and what they do. And feel that it also could accommodate Mosaic Medical, which operates in the PS zone and a property owned by Deschutes County or by the school districts. So we wanted to take this opportunity to make sure that it's covered, its use is covered as well. So I think that's the kind of the gist of the proposal. Haven't received any public comment from our publishing of the
No correspondence.
no correspondence. So
Okay.
there may be some folks here that want to provide some public comment tonight, which is great.
First, we had questions of staff.
Yeah, so I guess I conclude my presentation. Ready for any questions.
Okay. At this time, I'll ask each commissioner whether they have any questions for staff. Questions will be stated by each commissioner. Staff will respond after all questions have been asked by the commissioner. I'm not gonna do a roll call. This, if you have a question.
Well,
I know before, Scott, that we talked about them being too general, but you guys kind of switched that with these sort of being too general as in like this building could be used for those uses if somebody wanted. Was that taken into account? You feel like
That
it's
is
all,
too general, or-
yeah.
No, I guess it's, you know, it's something that we all have to be comfortable with. That could be potentially something that's in any public facility zone. We talked about some different tools we could use to limit it to just outside or add in conditional use. And you know, we could still do that. Find that with like overlay zones, we don't want to have too many of them because it gets kind of confusing to administer. We consider conditional use. You can still go there. I guess my original contention was that I don't think that it necessarily rises to a conditional use because all the use is internal. It's not creating noise, smoke, glare. It doesn't have a crazy amount of traffic generation. So that is one way to continue to have some oversight over where it goes. But I guess that's something that was up to you guys if you feel
It
strong.
hasn't happened in the past though, right? Nobody's taken advantage of that. Let's call it a loophole.
A loophole in terms of
You could have use a public facility in a manner that is a permitted use, right?
you still have, it'd have to meet this definition and cool.
I was surprised to see pharmacy in there. Is that to cover the Mosaic Medical Facility?
Yeah, and yeah, I think for the pharmaceutical things that they dispense internally, as opposed to a straight pharmacy, which considered something else. So that's just like it's like a secondary use or secondary an accessory use to what they do.
I probably wasn't there for the workshop, so it's my bad for not knowing. But what was the discussion regarding excluding drug treatment services for rehab?
Well, I think it was, related to, I think I'll have to have some else to fill in details, but I think, talk about like using cycles, the mushrooms and stuff like that, still within.
Psilocybin.
You know, which is, I think, controlled under state law and their requirements, or that, you know, that when we were talking pretty broadly at that point. I think under the guys at Community Health Center, we just think there was a desire to make it to narrow it so that anything that goes on in these areas is more oriented towards, you know, addressing non-drug treatment kind of uses. So to make sure that, like, especially in school situation, that we would have those kinds of incompatible uses or school functions and school students. Yeah, we left it general. There was some talk about whether this be specifically oriented towards youth, but I think there was some comments that you know, we didn't want to exclude potential you know, food centers or free shop centers, those kinds of things that might be accessible to adults. So,
Is your issue with behavioral health and drug treatment, like those could overlay each other?
Oh, no, I can, you know, I mean, I don't know if we want to jump to deliberations or discussion or anything like that. I just don't understand why we would exclude drug treatment or rehab. And, you know, if the concern is safety, it sounds to me a little bit like kind of we're worried about the population that might be showing up, but if we are overdoing behavioral health, presumably mental health would be silent in with behavioral health, and you might have those same issues. So maybe I'm a little sensitive to it. I work around it a lot with my job, and so I feel like people getting sober shouldn't be shouldn't have difficult time money. I think that's just a big issue I think we have in our community, and so I don't necessarily agree with, and particularly in a section where we're allowing beer and wine as an accessory use. So we're saying that no one trying to get sober.
yeah, so Commissioner, it's good topic to bring up, but I think it is edging a little closer to deliberation. So
Yeah.
we consider that for that.
Yeah.
That would be great.
One more question on the childcare center, great idea, you don't have to define that, that's already in there.
It's already.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I had just one question that was about accessible. Was the intent behind that more like affordable? Like easily accessed by the community, affordable, something like
I
that,
think it has some of those connotations.
Okay.
Yeah.
but we don't want to just go with affordable.
Yeah, then we have to define what.
Then we have to define,
what that
okay.
means. I think it would just be better just to leave that out, unless
Like that could be complicated.
Yeah, okay.
But it's
Get rid
certainly
of-
included.
All for it.
Any other questions?
Speaking of accessibility, that whole building is ADA compliant, is it not?
I would assume so. I can't say that for sure. Given that it was operated as a school, I would assume it is.
Okay, we'll move on to public testimony. We'll now invite members of the audience to provide testimony. When called, please come forward, and state your name and address for the record before proceeding with your testimony. When your name, number is called, please indicate whether or not you'll be providing testimony. For those attending via Zoom, we will conduct a roll call to see who wants to provide testimony. We'll start in-house here. Sean?
Thank you. Could I let the other speaker go first?
Sure.
Oh, my name is Kristen Eby, and I'm the founder and executive director of Treehouse Therapies. And we are the potential tenant that Scott was referring to. I started working with Superintendent Scholes and Jennifer Holland of the Sisters Park and Rec about a year ago, talking about the need for pediatric therapy services and sisters and throughout our Central Oregon area, specifically for behavioral health and pediatric behavioral health and occupational therapy. I think it would be hard for anyone living today to not understand and realize that there's a significant behavioral health need across our nation, but certainly in our community. And this need is really big with our kids. Such that Treehouse Therapies, again, we're a nonprofit pediatric therapy clinic. We provide physical therapy, occupational therapy, and behavioral health. And we have over 500 children on our wait list for occupational therapy and behavioral health. And most of these kids are referred to us. They're between the ages of 5 and 12, and they're referred to us for behavioral concerns. It's over 500 children specifically for behavioral concerns. They're referred for OT as well as behavioral health. When my kids go to school here in Sisters, I actually live in Redmond, but as I understood the elementary school to be using, I definitely saw that as, oh my gosh, this could be an answer to this issue. The biggest thing that we have is the problem that we have in filling that need is space, an affordable space to fill this need. So it was at that time I reached out to Kurt and asked what is that building going to be used for? And he told me storage at the time, and I said, oh, I have an idea. There's a need, and he knows the need. And so he said, yes, we want this. And then at the time we didn't know this was gonna have to go through this process, but we've endured through it and believe in it. And we're here, we're ready. We've been hiring, and we just really need the space to start making this difference. And again, these kids are in Sisters, but we anticipate that they will be coming from all over Central Oregon. We have developed a program and a system and a program that really combines occupational therapy and behavioral health and really integrates the parent in our treatment. It's an intensive program that we know we can meet this need, we can fill this need. We think, we could potentially do it within just 2 years. So our goal is that we meet the need now and that in the future, it won't be this significant. We want to meet the immediate need. And then we want to start working on some prevention so that there's not this huge need. Going forward, we love that we have the opportunity to be partnered with childcare and preschool because again, that we can start to work on prevention and start seeing these kids younger before they get into school and are having these issues. These kids that are coming to us, these kids on the wait list, they are being referred because they are not able to function at school or at home or in the community. And these families need help. And we have developed a plan and a program that we know we can do it. And just to address the drug, kind of excluding the drug use need, I recognize that is a need. It would be, it's not a good ideal setting to have both a pediatric therapy clinic next to an adult rehab setting. That would be not necessarily totally conflicting, but it could be difficult and present safety issues. That's alluded to. Thank you.
Hey, Sean. Please state your name and address.
Yes, I'm Sean Diaz. I live at 1170 East Cascade here in Sisters. I lived in Sisters about 18 years and moved here from Portland with my family and have been an educator as a school counselor for 24 years. Started working at the Sisters Elementary. And so I'm very familiar with the needs of young children and their families, and even more so, I'd say, in the last decade. And so when I heard about Treehouse wanting to reach out and provide these services to our community, I was so excited. In my time working in the schools, educators do their best to meet all the needs of students, academically, socially, And yet it's so hard. There's limited time and resources. And so whenever over the years we've been able to partner with mental health services, it's made the most impact, not only for that kid and their education, but the others in the school and their families. And so what really has excited me about this potential is to have right in our community a program that addresses these behavior needs with faceted approach and is really supporting the parents in that. Because if you have a kid that is struggling with behaviors, especially mental health, that is a hard road to walk. And so this program that they're proposing would really come alongside the parents, give them skills training, coaching, and encouragement to continue in the work they're doing so that their family can really get stabilized and the children can be more successful in the home, in the schools, in the community. And so the need is great, and to have that right in our community, I was so excited to hear that. So that's why I'm here today speaking in favor of this. And I think it would not only help our community, but the larger regional area as well. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to give testimony? About Zoom?
Nobody, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions of clarification? Does any member of the planning commission have any further questions of staff? Okay. Close or continuation of hearing. If there are no further questions, I'll close the public testimony portion of this hearing. The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Planning commission deliberations. We've now closed the hearing. Then must deliberate towards a decision. Our options are to recommend A, approval as proposed, B, approval with changes, C, denial. When your name is called, please provide your thoughts on proposed amendments and what decision you're inclined to make. I will continue going through the order until there are no further deliberations or until a motion is made. So you'll have the opportunity to respond and or adjust your thoughts based on testimony of your fellow commissioners. Pardon? What? Well, everybody's gonna get a chance. Anna?
Yeah, so I want to bring it right to the excluding the drug treatment services. And thinking about, okay, an example, what if there was a nonprofit that wanted to host some kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous group, like, would we want to exclude that nonprofit from being able to do that?
No,
Yeah.
I
No,
don't think we would.
and so does that, this term drug treatment services, I'm not in the field, I don't know what the different terms that are often used. To me, that does include rehabilitation. I think when we discussed before, we talked about not wanting drug treatments, which I don't think would be allowed on this property anyway, because I don't think they're like federally.
1,000-foot rule anyway. That's
Yeah, so I guess I think we should discuss what that means, like what kind of uses we would want to allow.
I think if you're gonna call something a community health center, I think it's best not to be exclusive. I mean, if this is a children's health center, sure. But I think arguably even children at a certain age inevitably need drug and alcohol treatment, unfortunately.
That's probably realistic.
Or 13 to 18. I don't agree with excluding drug treatment services or AA treatment. I fully, everything I heard from both of our speakers today, I love the idea of helping children with behavioral issues. Got two of my own. They're not that far outside of that age range of 5 to 12. And the more of that kind of thing we can get in the community, the better. I don't think we need to exclude from a zoning definition the idea of offering drug and alcohol treatment services to people in our community in order to do it. And in particular, in a zone that allows concessions for beer and wine. Maybe that has nothing to do with this. This is an isolated definitional term here. I've lost count how many times I've had discussions with people about the homelessness issues in our community, and Ben, sisters everywhere, and everyone goes straight to, well, they're on drugs, they're on alcohol. Okay, well, let's get people help. And then when we go to create a community health center, we're going to exclude that kind of help from the definition. I couldn't disagree with that more. Apart from that, everything. I love the idea of adding community health center and all of the language, except for the exclusive language.
So we have a couple different options that we can add more inclusive language to say substance use disorder treatment and exclude other things, or we can just strip it entirely, but that might leave it vague, right? And allow uses that were not intended, right? Because we don't know what uses could be intended there. I'm with you. I agree completely that it's a acceptable use of community health, but do we exclude it? The intent, it seemed like to me was not to exclude people, and I'm curious. Was curious to see it in the final documentation. I thought it was interesting that we were, and that was just out of our conversation that we had in the workshop, I think, right? With someone raised that issue, that Daryl, somebody raised that issue. Yeah, I don't know. We have a couple. Do you want to exclude it? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm saying strike the language in parentheses. That's my opinion. Anyone disagree with that? I don't see a need for that. I can't see a good reason.
I'm not the final order.
Right, you don't necessarily know that it could be.
Yeah, so because we don't have that
Right.
current medical, there doesn't mean
Right.
suddenly here's going to come out on groups
Remember,
surrounding
it's not
children.
just that property, it's other properties. So
Yes.
we have to be cognizant.
Right.
Yeah.
And the public uses. Somebody probably just concluded that with other. Something. Take that out of there. I guess you can follow the behavioral health, but it's. Wouldn't, but by taking it out, it wouldn't be specifically listed as something.
Please stop. Sorry, I turned your microphone off. Can you turn it back on? Thank you.
You gotta repeat everything you just said.
Just thinking that, if you remove that, then it's not specifically excluded, then it's not specifically included either.
Sure.
Somebody. This is may not think that is even an option for that. And I guess the other. It's not the best thing to fall back into, but the tenants can always kind of decide who they want to lease, which kind of uses they want to lease to.
Right, the school still owns the property and they're using it.
Yeah,
They can decide whether they
They
want
can see that's not.
That's a great point.
And could it be a condition with say, Best Care came in and said, hey, we want to have a drug treatment
You
center.
could do that.
And it could be, all right, well, we're going to put you through the paces, and see, if we're going to make sure this is appropriate.
It should be us excluding it, not the landlord.
So, right, that's a good point. I think it's.
I'm okay with striking that language.
I agree.
And this is the definition of community health center, not what can happen in the sisters' old elementary school, but what we as a community define as community health center. So that's important to remember.
I like that.
Right. Okay.
And then maybe strike will be accessible because the lawyer said so. I agree. It's accessible is kind of implied, who want people to access it.
And that could be ADA accessible,
affordable accessibility.
Right. Hey, are we pretty much all in agreement?
Approve with those two changes, is that kind of what we're thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
B, approval with changes,
I agree, I think we should.
strike accessible and strike the in parentheses, yes.
So, we make a motion.
Yes.
I move to approve city file number TA 25 02 with the change that in definition of community health center, we would exclude parenthetical remark that states but excluding drug treatment services, and also strike the word accessible in the first line, but otherwise approve the rest of it.
Second.
All right.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous?
Well, city council again.
Okay. Any further comments?
Just to kind of do calendar updates for commission. We're starting the next round of steering committee, River County Steering Committee meetings next week. This April 24th, between 4 and 6 p.m. The intent of those meetings is to share the draft preferred alternatives with the committee. So you'll recall previously there was 5 alternatives that we've got the direction to whittle that down to basically one A and one B, which was pretty much alternative 1 with a little bit of alternative 5. But the direction was to kind of take those and kind of refine those into one preferred alternative. Although the A and the B is A is 1 without the McKenzie Meadows parcels. And B is with an alternative with McKenzie Meadows village parcels. Still for the outcome of the resolution of the rezone of their application at the county. They have their hearings officer hearing, but we don't have the decision yet from the hearings officer. It's an open record thing right now. We don't want to probably tell early June or early June. The open record here doesn't really cover May 12th, they can have up to 3 weeks to issue this and it still has to go to the board. The idea is to kind of talk about those boundaries to get it right. That they point out, that's kind of the intent of the next round of meetings, and then kind of give an update on what we want to do going forward. We wait for the outcome of the rezone, which can be tied to the appeals for a long time. That will part of our UGA process as well. So that's what we're going to discuss. Then following that, the next planning commission meeting would be May 1st, which would be a work session on the floodplain, so the amendments to the floodplain ordinance. We think we have a proposal to meet the requirements as part of the lawsuit out of society. It relates to health and fisheries, pretty much on the Columbia River, but since White Shoes Creek is a tributary to the Shoes, which is a tributary to the Columbia, we are in that area that needs to make sure that our standards are not affecting fish quality, fish habitat. So instead of doing a big revision and adopting the model ordinance, one of the recommendations we think that we're going to just do it on a permit by permit basis, which would only entail a minor amendment to our code to request that a wildlife biologist submit a study, basically seeing what the impact is to the fish habitat. So we're going to review that with the next work session, and then on the 15th, we're going to have the regular scheduled planning commission meeting be a joint planning commission and council workshop on the UGB. So the same stuff that I was just talking about, the steering committee will review planning commission council at joint meeting. Yeah. Maybe you want to plug everything in there?
Sure. Hey, we've got Arbor Day next Friday, April 25th at 10 a.m. We are planting around 40 seedlings in an area just southeast of the newest roundabout. So if you're available or you've got kiddos that need something to do that day, we're planting some trees and we'll kick off the event at Creekside Park. Thanks.
You said the 23rd.
Yeah, next Friday, April 25th, 10 a.m. We've got tote bags this year.
Okay,
I think that's it for staff.
meeting is adjourned.
I guess there's a about to commissioner comments today. Did anybody have commissioner comments?
This is a pretty easy,
I figured they were just gonna speak up.
Right.
They didn't even go.
That's right. Thanks to the public who showed up today. We'll get that.
Hey there.
I gave you my notes.
I would love it. Yes, thank you. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.